and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you like the content, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. Thanks a bunch. Alright guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at a guitar that some people say is the greatest guitar you can buy on the internet right now for under $500. That's right, indeed we are talking about this guitar right here. This is an Musi Virgo Fusion. And yeah, you can find these guitars just about anywhere on the internet right now. I mean, targeted ads are all over the place for Facebook. If you're on Amazon, these things do pop up. You know, if there's a Prime Day sale or a Black Friday sale, these things pop up super cheap. And I think they're around 360 US when they go on sale. Really inexpensive guitar. Anyway, I bought this thing back in May. Again, I saw it on Amazon. Price looked good. It's quite obviously a hollow flake finish, which is pretty sweet for the money. And I've been looking around on YouTube, and most of the reviews that I can find on this thing are indeed sponsored. So good news. I'm going to give you an honest, unsponsored review of this particular guitar. I'll give you kind of my comments, my opinions and thoughts on this piece since I've had it now since May. I've been playing it for quite a while. And hopefully that will help you come to some kind of decision whether or not you think that this is actually worth the little money they're asking for it. If you guys are more interested in things like tones, I will leave some of that stuff more towards the end of the video. I'm not going to do a ton, but I will do some. Just make sure you follow the timestamps here and find the content you're looking for, okay? Alright guys, the body. Quite obviously, you know, we already mentioned this and it's pretty darn clear. This is kind of a super shreddy Telecaster looking body shape. This finish is pretty darn stunning. This is called Galaxy Black, if I'm not mistaken. They've got a bunch of other really cool finishes on this range of guitars. I highly recommend you check out the whole lineup if you're interested in this particular guitar. They've got kind of a chameleon looking blue one. They've got a really cool, almost like iguana burst looking thing. Pretty neat stuff. The body itself is made out of mahogany, according to the literature they provided on their webpage. I will say my only gripe about the body itself is while this finish is quite stunning, if you run your hand over it, you can actually feel some imperfections. And I think a lot of this is due to the flakes in the actual paint itself. Probably just not a ton of clear coat and buffing that went on over this. But again, for the price point, I can't complain too much about that. I will say when this one showed up, one of the horns did actually have some scuffing and damage, probably from packaging. I'm not sure the quality control levels that are going on. I think these are probably shipped directly out of China to like an Amazon warehouse and then, you know, onto the final consumer, you and me. But a little bit more attention to detail there would have been better. But I was able to buff that out with some polish, and now it looks pretty fine. But it did take me a little over an hour to get it looking presentable, so not so great there. As far as the actual features and creature comforts on this particular body, as you can already tell, you've got yourself a tremolo, which is probably what drew you to this model in the first place. This is what caught my eye and got me interested in this guitar immediately, was you just don't normally see Telecasters with a trem system. The only one that comes to mind is Eert, however you want to pronounce it. Another brand made, I think, in China as well, and honestly, similar looking headstock and body shape to these. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the same factory, but I don't know for certain. And yeah, they also come with a pretty good looking trem. I will say the quality of this trem is really nice. It looks very similar to some Wilkinson style tremolos you can buy. This is a screw-in bar, and there's like no play here. It's a really nice fitting bar. You've got nice adjustments on your saddles for string height and that kind of stuff, as well as intonation. Excellent there. 2 posts, obviously, so really stable. Does return to pitch with moderate use. You can't beat on this like a Floyd Rose, but I don't think there are really any non-locking trims out there on the market that you can beat on like a Floyd Rose. This one I do beat on like a Floyd, but that's because I've got that thing on the nut, which is a nut buster, guitar nut buster. I'll talk more about this a little bit later on. Really cool little device that more or less lets you abuse these things like single locking trims because it turns it into a single locking trim, and doesn't actually mount to your guitar, so there's no damage or anything like that. But again, I'll leave a link to this thing if you guys are more interested in that later on. Anyway, moving right along, aside from that, the other piece of hardware obviously is you've got you know, 2 knobs here, volume and a tone, and they're both split, so they both split these pickups. These pickups are called Andromeda pickups, Andromeda neck, Andromeda bridge. They sound okay. A lot of people are saying that these sound really epically amazing, and I'm going to say they sound okay. They're not Seymour Duncans, they're not DiMarzios, but you're not paying for that either. They're pretty okay. I find they get a little bit muddy when you've got a lot of distortion and stuff going on and you're trying to really get clean note definition while you're shredding away, but small gripe, they sound pretty good clean, and I'll show you some more of that a little bit later on in the video. Another thing to mention about the pickups too, just while we're talking about them, is these are directly mounted to the mahogany body. So some people say that affects tone and sound and all that. I don't know how much of that is true, but if you're into that kind of thing, that's a plus. As far as selection goes, you've got a 3-way switch, but this still gives you plenty of variety considering that these can be independently split. So you get lots and lots of choice with that. Also, another thing that's quite nice, these strap buttons are massive. Like, look at these things. These are like the size of Gibson Les Paul buttons. They're huge. Your strap not coming off. I mean, most of us usually put, Schaller strap locks on these things. I personally tend to put kind of those little Grolsch washer things that you get on the Grolsch beer bottles on these, and that works fine. But I can't even fit one over here because this thing is so massive. But on the upside, that's not going anywhere. As far as beveling, creature comforts, and all that stuff goes, obviously you can see this has got some really interesting beveling for a Telecaster. Like, this is kind of a modern swoopy thing here, which looks pretty cool. I don't mind it. It's different, and you can see it kind of carries around the body like so. On the back, you've got some pretty standard stuff here. We've got a tummy cut, which is really nice, and that's pretty much it for creature comforts, aside from, as you can see up here on the horn, or just under the horn here, you've got kind of a recessed cut here, which is nice for access, and also, if you can see that heel joint, that is a really nice and shapely heel. That feels quite nice in the hand. Really good if you're going to be up here and shredding around like a maniac. So yeah, you know what, Musi, that's pretty nice. These are good features. Oh, while I got this flipped over here, I did have this cover off when I was just adjusting my tension on my springs back here, and I will say the route job under here actually looks pretty good. I was expecting it to look kind of like a hack and slash, kind of unfinished, looking a little rough, maybe not routed and finished off to nice standards. But you know what? Actually, this looks pretty good, which makes me feel reassuring. I haven't had this one off yet for the electronics because these are still the stock electronics. I haven't changed anything. But so far, I'm feeling pretty good about it. It seems to be, made out of not a gajillion pieces of different mahoganies all glued together. So yeah, so far, so good. All right, the neck. What can I tell you about the neck? Obviously, the headstock is painted to match, which is quite nice. And obviously, you can see up here, you've got the Musi logo and the name of the model. And you can see it's kind of recessed as well, that cut. I like that. Reminds me kind of the old Yamaha RGX series from the late 80s, early 90s. And on the back, you've got your serial number, as well as that it's designed by Musi. It doesn't mention where this thing was manufactured, but I'm quite certain this is a Chinese-made instrument. Not that that's a problem. It's still quite nice. Obviously, you can see that the neck itself is a lovely roasted maple. The finish is a satin, which feels great. They don't say what the profile is on this, but it's very comfortable. It feels kind of like a flat Fender. A little bit flatter than a Fender, but still fairly substantial. Not a super thin shredder like you'd find on a lot of other guitars. Quite nice. I do quite enjoy that. Scale length itself is 25.5 inches, as you would expect on a Fender Telecaster or any other kind of super stratty sort of thing. The frets themselves, you've got 22 of them. Again, the accessibility up here is pretty good with this deep cut. I think that's a bit deeper actually than you'd find on a normal Telecaster, which makes sense. This is some sort of fusion Telecaster if the name is to be believed. Truss rod adjustment right there, which is fantastic. This is the kind of thing you see on like Charvels and Schechters for a lot more money. That's a really nice feature, really easy to adjust. They provide you all the tools to do so. So A+ Musi on that one. I like that. I think everybody does. As far as the fingerboard itself, we're supposed to believe that this is a rosewood, which is interesting for under $500. But yeah, if that's true, this is rosewood. Also, the inlays themselves, what is that? Is that abalone? You can see them. They kind of looks like abalone to me. They don't mention anywhere on any of their stuff what that is, but they look really good. The frets are pretty awesome. So these are stainless steel frets, which again, for the price point, is pretty unheard of. The fret dressing on this is really great. These are the little rounded, you can see they're all kind of rounded off. Really, really great. You're not going to feel anything sharp here. One thing I will say though, my first fret up here, I don't know if that's just not in there properly, but I can get you can see it, I just did it. You can see that? My string is wedged underneath it. That's no good, right? That's my only beef. I might get out my little finishing hammer there and see if I can tap that in there and make it a little bit better, but that's my only beef as far as the fretwork goes. Considering the price point, this is a really nice fret job, so no complaints there. And again, neck looks really good. The radius itself, again, they don't mention, but that is pretty darn flat. That's got to be at least 14 inches. Again, I wish they published this stuff. They don't, but yeah, that is definitely a very flat style fingerboard. On the back of the headstock, I actually didn't mention this before, but these are locking tuners, and I gotta say, these are quite nice. They're unbranded, but they feel really good. The ratios in them are pretty decent. And yeah, just my general impressions of them, these feel like nice quality locking tuners, so that's a nice bonus. Of course, this one I've got this fancy guitar nut buster on here, so it kind of makes these redundant since I'm locking the string here anyway, just behind the nut. But if you're not doing that, like probably most people are, these are really nice tuners for what they are on this. You will not need to change them. Okay, now my only gripes with this neck, you obviously saw the one with my low E string there getting caught under the first fret, is the nut itself. The nut is a bone nut, which is nice. If this is a bone nut, that's a great piece to have on any guitar, a bone nut. My problem with it is the cut of it doesn't seem to be too great. I didn't have this on here all the time. Obviously, I was playing this without it for quite a while, but I'm a little bit of an idiot with the bar, so this helps me a bit. But I was finding just moving my trem back and forth, you'd hear that telltale ping, you know, as you do so, and it was coming mostly from my G. And that just comes down to a poor cut of the nut. So if you do buy one of these, hopefully you know how to do a little bit of nut work yourself, maybe use some graphite, some nut sauce, that kind of stuff in there, or recut it if you know how to do so. But that is something that may or may not be a problem for you. It was for me. I've circumvented the issue by sticking a lock nut behind there and everything's fine, but might be a problem for you. The other problem I'm having besides that, and it's not really a problem again because I got a lock nut on here now and it kind of circumvents all of this, is you might be able to see this, but on the back here, see how high, yeah, right there, see how high the high E string and even the B string for that matter are away from the headstock itself. The problem with that is you end up with a really shallow break angle over the nut here. And when I didn't have that nut on there, the lock nut, when I was playing this, my high E string, not only was it getting stuck on here, it was jumping out of the nut on occasion, which was irritating, again, just from a lack of tension. So I've heard a lot of people talking about putting just a little string tree here, something like that, and I would tend to agree. You may or may not want to put a string tree there. Again, this kind of depends on what kind of player you are and how hard you hit the strings, but I'm still thinking I might do it just to put a little bit more tension on that nut. So food for thought, something you might need to upgrade or invest in if you are interested in one of these guitars. Oh yeah, and of course, I mean, this obviously has my guitar nut buster on it, and the reason it has that is so that I can do silly dive bombs and be an idiot with this thing because I just can't control myself when I have a whammy bar on a guitar. These are really nice quality items anyway. I'll leave a link to them if you're kind of curious about these. Obviously there's no modification to your guitar that happens at all to stick one on. They sit just behind the nut and they rest on the strings, and they just lock all the strings together so the strings move as one, returning to pitch. Clever little design. Works really well, and the unit itself, like you can see, it's got an Allen key, magnetic Allen key holder on there. Really nicely thought out and put together unit. Really great machining, really nice feeling fine tuners. Anyway, I'll leave a link to that if you're interested. But yeah, I mean, unless you do the dumb stuff that you're probably going to want to do with the whammy bar. That stuff stays in tune. Really cool little modification, and again, it's totally reversible, no drilling, nothing going on there. Anyway, the tones. Alright guys, so for tones, I'm just going to kind of run through all the positions, and I'll just try and play the same thing over and over again so you can actually hear a little bit of change. All these sounds are clean coming through my Dark Horse 15 just on the pure channel, and I got a little bit of reverb on, but not much because I want you to actually hear all these sounds. Alright, here we go. Neck position. Neck middle. Bridge. All right, neck with a split. Neck middle with a split. And this is the middle, which is going to be bridge and neck both split. And this would be the bridge split. Actually, I really like this one. This one sounds kind of funky to me, this one split. Anyway, yeah, pretty versatile. Lots of interesting usable tones there, and pretty good pickups. Again, not the best pickups I've ever heard in the world, but a far shout from the worst. Okay, the rocky stuff. Alright, there you guys have it. That is my unsponsored review on the Musi Virgo Fusion. Yeah, you know what? With all the ads and all the hype about this thing, I mean, they do say that this competes with, you know, Charvels and Schecters and all that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and say no. It's a very good guitar, but it's not quite at that level of whatever. I will say, for the amount of money you're paying, is this worth it? Yeah, 100%. You're not going to find a guitar for, you know, 500, 360 US that has this kind of finish, these kind of features, and honestly, the quality is pretty good. Like, I can't really complain too much about it. I mean, I've got a few little gripes there just due to quality control issues, but honestly, for the features and the money you're paying, it would not take much to set this up to be a really spectacular instrument. I mean, really a good setup from a luthier, and you know, if you wanted to change these to some nice brand name pickups, you're probably still looking at less money than buying a brand new Charvel. So you know what? Yeah, for the cash, really cool guitar. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today on this particular guitar. I hope you liked this review. I hope you found this informative. I hope you learned something. If you did, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. As per usual, everybody, just keep on shredding, and we will talk to you in the next video. Goodbye for now.